So Dave, you believe that all the rocky bits turn into perfect balls, and then all of the gases somehow start getting gravity, and they start pulling it together, and they get
Start
so
getting
big.
gravity? What do you
Well,
mean start getting gravity?
how do they grow into stars? How come the dust is accumulating? What's bringing it together? Is somebody pushing it
Gravity.
up like a snowball? So
Gravity.
gravity. So yeah,
Yeah.
so they get something, and it's a tiny bit of gravity pulls in some more dust. It pulls in not dust, it pulls in gases, and somehow it's pulling all of these gases together and turning into a nuclear furnace that burns for billions of years. I'm sorry, that doesn't make any sense. And if you
Okay,
want to believe that, that's your world.
so centuries of brilliant astronomers versus nuh-uh. Is that really all you have? Is the entire field of astronomy and you going, I don't like it. That's dumb. I'm dumb and I don't get it. So astronomy is wrong.
Dave,
That's literally your argument against astronomy right now.
you never met these men. You don't know anything about these men other than the stories that the
Yeah,
controllers of this world tell you.
you know they
Aristophanes,
wrote books, right?
well,
You know
so
they
Arist,
wrote books that
so
we can read, and then
but
we base astronomy on that and do astronomy every
Dave,
day,
Dave,
right?
Dave, try not to interrupt. Aristophanes figured out the shadow.
Eratosthenes.
Eratosthenes figured out the diameter, the circumference of the Earth with his sticks and shadows. But
Uh-huh.
nobody in that area that came out of that, other mathematicians, never wrote any books about him. They ignored him. They just never mentioned it, and then all of a sudden it shows up in the 1900s in
Okay,
books that go
well,
into the
that's not
education
true.
system.
I mean, if you're just gonna lie, then
Wait,
we can just play the lie game.
and and Dave, what about the fact that that proves nothing? It works perfectly on a flat Earth. Sticks and shadows prove the Earth is flat, and it proves it's a globe. But you'd have to assume parallel rays. Listen to this. Aristophanes believed that parallel rays are coming into Earth, right? And no one has ever seen parallel rays coming into Earth, right? When we look, we always see them curved. We always see them corpuscular. But he also believed that the Earth was geocentric and we had an infinitely far sun. And so that sun is orbiting around a
Infinitely
minuscule,
far? What
well,
was
infinitely far.
infinitely far?
Infinitely far means so far away that the rays come in parallel. And that's a whole nother problem. But how is a distant sun orbiting around a speck Earth in the middle of in the middle of space? That doesn't make sense. And they didn't think about that
What
when they
doesn't make sense? What doesn't make sense about
how
an Earth
how
orbiting a sun? What
no, no, no,
you
no.
going, that
No, you
doesn't
didn't
make
hear me.
sense
Dave,
isn't an
Dave,
argument.
Dave, stop being a dick. Listen to what I said.
You stop
The,
being a dick.
the Eratosthenes believed that the Earth was geocentric, that the sun orbited us, but the sun was a distant sun. How does a distant gigantic sun orbit a minuscule speck Earth?
Well,
Okay, yeah, you have no answer
How
for that.
they
You
don't
have,
know.
yeah,
It's the ancient Greeks. They didn't know. Now we know, right? We figured out heliocentrism in like the
Dave,
16th century.
his
So it was
story
like
makes
500 years ago. It's a pretty long time.
his story makes no sense. And the other question is, you believe that the sun rays that come in are parallel, right?
No, there.
I,
Look, there are rays that are parallel, and then you can point a ray from the
so,
edge, one edge of the sun, and the other edge. Look, light is going in all directions, right? The sun is expelling light. They're spherical waves of light, photons in every direction, right? So you can identify parallel rays, and then you can identify one from this edge, and if you want to talk about individual photons, you can draw paths from the edge of the sun going in one direction, the edge of the sun going in the other direction. You're trying to oversimplify things. You're trying to go, oh, it's corpuscular, it's all parallel, and so then this time it works for my talking point, and then another
Dave,
time it doesn't
my
work for my talking point.
my point is Aristophanes' story doesn't make any sense with a distant sun orbiting a geocentric Earth.
Yeah,
The
if
other
you
problem,
just say it doesn't make sense and stop talking, I guess.
how does a distant sun orbit a geocentric Earth when the Earth is tiny and the sun is gigantic? It
Well, it
doesn't work
doesn't.
in your
Long
model.
story short, it
Yeah.
doesn't. But
So
he was
why
an ancient Greek and he
no?
didn't know heliocentrism. They didn't know when Newton
Yeah.
developed Newton's law of universal gravitation, he didn't know why massive objects attract one another, right? He just said, this is what happens, and I have this equation, and we use Newton's equations to do all these incredible calculations that predict the motion of objects on Earth and in space. He didn't know what gravity was. Einstein.
Your notes. I figured out. I watch a few of your videos. I know
Mhm.
the straw manning that you're going to try to do and the things that you're going to try to claim. And in reality, an infrared camera, a regular camera from the space station, they should be able to see the sun, the moon, either approach the sun, uh, eclipse the sun completely, or exit the sun. And nobody has ever seen it. So again, why are we looking up in the sky when
Yeah,
we're
I
talking
just
about the
explained.
shape
I
of the Earth?
just answered your question. You just answered it again. You asked a question that I just answered.
which is
The
that?
sun is very bright, right? Way, way, way brighter than Earthshine. Do you understand that if something very bright, you're looking at something very bright, you can't see something way less bright right
Dave,
next to it? What are you not getting about that?
when there's a total eclipse of the sun and you have the the little ring around there, you can block that out so it doesn't blind you and you still can't see it. You know what?
It
Why are we
doesn't block
talking
it
about
out.
the
The
lights in the
corona,
sky?
have
Why
you
are we
never
talking about the
seen an
lights in
eclipse?
why are we talking? You can make a fake eclipse, right? By putting a disc in front of the sun and then looking at the corona. And you could do the same thing with the corona. You can block it.
Yeah,
Why
and
are
it's
we looking
really
up at the
bright.
lights in the ceiling that determine the shape of the floor?
Because it works really well. It's the easiest way to figure out the shape of the Earth is by looking at the celestial objects in the sky and recording their motion.
One
It's
second.
very, very
One
easy.
second. Ash has said we've got to move on to the next talking point, which is space is not as depicted, displayed in media, movies, etc. Flat Earth, Dave, do you want to start with that one?
Ask the question again, please.
Space is not as depicted, displayed in media, movies.
Yeah, I mean, space is they're just giving us images of insanity in space. Like when they show us nebulas, right? They show us this and they tell us this is where stars are born. This is where there's gas and dust. So much of it that it's creating stars and spitting them out like ping pong balls, where they go run away and they park themselves in the rest of the galaxy. This gas and dust in space in a vacuum in zero pressure. How does that work? How come this doesn't collapse in on itself? This is just a
It does.
fantasy
That's how
painting.
stars are born.
Yeah,
They
so
do collapse.
yeah,
It's
so
how stars form.
Dave, in your world, this is gases are collapsing upon themselves and then
Yeah.
igniting themselves in a vacuum, in a vacuum, and then they
This
burn
is
for
no.
billions
Stop,
and
stop.
trillions of years.
Look, I know that you want to just spew your script without anybody challenging, but you say so many
I have no
stupid things,
script, David.
and I'm here to tell you why everything you're saying is stupid. So when you say stars igniting in a vacuum, the reason that's confusing for you is that you think stars are little bonfires
No, I
because
don't.
you're a moron. Because
No,
you don't understand nuclear
you,
fusion.
you think that
Nuclear fusion is the process by which stars glow. They're not little fireballs.
So
And you could
Dave,
learn that by Googling something for 5 seconds, but you don't do it.
So Dave, you believe that all the rocky bits turn into perfect balls, and then all of the gases somehow start getting gravity, and they start pulling it together, and they get
Start
so
getting
big.
gravity? What do you
Well,
mean start getting gravity?
how do they grow into stars? How come the dust is accumulating? What's bringing it together? Is somebody propping it
Gravity.
up like a snowball? So
Gravity.
So yeah,
Yeah.
so they get something, and it's a tiny bit of gravity pulls in some more dust. It pulls in not dust, it pulls in gases, and somehow it's pulling all of these gases together and turning into a nuclear furnace that burns for billions of years. I'm sorry, that doesn't make any sense. And if you
Okay,
want to believe
so
that,
so
that's your
so
world.
so centuries of brilliant astronomers versus nuh-uh. Is that really all you have? Is the entire field of astronomy and you going, that's I don't like it. That's dumb. I'm dumb and I don't get it. So astronomy is wrong.
Dave,
That's literally your argument against astronomy. I'll explain to you why it's stupid.
well, the question is, have you know any scientists or anybody that's ever proven that any of the luminaries we see in the sky are even physical, let alone spheres?
Yeah, we can see them in telescopes.
You can
We
see
can
them, so you believe that if you see something that'll tell you its shape. So when I look at this, are these spheres?
Oh.
Are these spheres, Dave? Are these spheres?
Yeah, no, I've seen this little trick and I know the
It's not
third
a
one
little
from the
trick.
left is flat.
It's
Now,
showing you
see, here's
the
the
third one
problem.
from the left is fat. Dave, let me give me a second, then you can
No,
go.
because I've
What
seen you do this because I
what
watched 2 of your videos and you say the same crap in every single one.
right.
I
But
know
what
what
I'm
these
showing
are. I
you
know
is
what these
you
shapes
don't
these are.
so how do you know what shape the moon is? How do you
Okay,
know that
so
the moon is even a physical object? Because
here's
during a new moon, no one
yeah,
sees
I
the
get
moon
it.
in the sky.
I know your talking points. So the reason, so this works because that's not moving. The things in the sky move. So if you take the third one from the left, which I know is flat, and you move it around, it's going to start to change shape, right? If the moon was a flat disk, I don't even know if that's one of your talking points or not. As it passed over you, it would change shape. It
I
would
don't think the moon is
distort.
a flat disk at all.
Okay, so it doesn't matter though. That's why what you're saying is stupid because these objects do not move. Now, the other problem is it's not just about shape, it's about other things like composition. Do you know what spectroscopy is?
Yeah, spectroscopy is you can measure gases, but it has to be in a container. Where's the container?
No, 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 no. Stop. We are looking at light. We're looking at light and we are understanding about the materials, right? We're understanding the composition of things based on light. So when you start talking about gases, you show me immediately that you don't even know what spectroscopy is. So you do not know the ways in which we figure out things about celestial objects. You literally don't even know the definitions of the words that represent the techniques that we use. So why are you even talking about it?
So my question is, spectroscopy needs to be in a container. Otherwise, you don't know what you're looking at.
Spectroscopy needs to be in a container. The
It needs to
study
be
of how light interacts with matter needs to be in a container. What does that mean?
Otherwise, when you're looking at the moon, you don't know what gases you're seeing in between us and the moon.
Gases? The moon is solid. The moon is a solid object.
How do you know that the moon is solid? How come you can't see it during a new moon?
Why can't you see it during a new moon?
Yeah.
Because do you understand how vision works?
Well,
Right? In a new moon, what's happening in a new moon? The
there's no
light from
light.
the
You
sun
break.
is illuminating the side of away from us.
So
Right? Light illuminates the things that it hits. So a new moon is when the side that the sun is illuminating is the other side away from us. What do
Dave,
you want it to do? The light to go around the moon and come back and
So
hit the other side like
yeah,
magic?
without interrupting, let me just answer. When we have when it's nighttime, you're away from all lights and there's a full moon. I can read by that moonlight. That moonlight casts a
Uh-huh.
shadow on the ground. Don't interrupt.
Uh-huh.
That casts a shadow on the ground. So that moonlight, which is reflected sunlight off a dusty, dirty, rocky, rock ball in your world, is bright enough to travel 238,000 miles to cast a shadow on the ground and to light up my book so I can read. During a total solar eclipse in your world, the Earth is a full Earth from the moon's point of view. It's bigger and shinier, and it should light up the moon, but it doesn't. And no telescope, no from any position with the
Gee,
infrared or anything, has ever seen the moon.
can you
eclipse the
think
sun.
of why? Can you think of why? Can you think of a much, much brighter object that is right there where the moon is?
Well, during
The
a
corona of the
total,
sun, which
during a
is thousands of times brighter. What you're
Dave,
doing right now is you're basically saying, I'm going to shine a spotlight directly into your eyes, and then you tell me if you can see a firefly 2 centimeters to the right. Like, what are you talking about? Do you
Dave,
seriously not understand this stuff? A child can understand this
so
stuff.
so when you're throwing out words like spectroscopy, what's the difference
Uh-huh.
between spectroscopy and astrospectroscopy?
What do you mean astro? So astro is a prefix that means stars. So if that's even a word, it's spectroscopy pertaining to stars. What are you like Googling stuff furiously over there?
I'm just asking you. I've taken a
Einstein gave a better explanation. The curvature of space-time are warped around massive objects. We're probably going to get a better model later. Just that we don't know why things happen doesn't mean we can't do science at predictive power. So as
what
it turns
science?
out, Eratosthenes and Ptolemy, the Ptolemaic model, was wrong. Heliocentric model is correct. It doesn't matter that they didn't know that part, or that they didn't know why something happened.
Without any further ado, let us bring in the guest for the Flat Earth debate. Here we go. Here's Flat Earth David. Hey, David, how's it going?
Hey, what's going on? Thanks for having me. This
Thank
is
you for coming back.
gonna be interesting for sure.
It's going to be very interesting, isn't it? And
Eh,
Professor Dave,
Howdy.
thank you for coming on for the first time.
Thanks for having me.
Congratulations on your YouTube success, man. 2 million subs. That's phenomenal.
Thank you.
Yeah.
This is the first time I think a real flat earther, I'll call myself a real flat earther, has spoken direct with Professor Dave, as he normally does videos, that just go out and pretty much straw man us, whether you know it or not, or gaslight us, and then there's really no way to respond because
No, so you've never seen my channel ever and have no idea what I do because I
Oh,
make
no, no.
academic tutorials.
I have, but your flat earth stuff is
Mhm.
is gaslighting us
It's
essentially. So
devastating and
well, yeah,
destroys flat Earth
devastating.
easily.
Absolutely. So
I
was
started
wondering- I
big
was
Straw
wondering-
man. Oh,
Dave,
he says that
Dave,
they think the Earth is flat. What a
You know
straw
what?
man.
I'm with you. Listen, I don't mean to come off that way. Would it be okay to look for some common ground? Can I just ask a couple of quick questions, Dave? You good with that?
Whatever you want to do, man.
Yeah, I'm just for to see if we have any common ground. Do you believe we went to the moon?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you believe that governments are here, especially the American government, for the people's well-being?
It's a pretty complicated question.
Okay, you don't have to answer it. That's fine. That's good. Do you believe that there's censorship going on YouTube?
Yes.
Some stuff is deprioritized in the algorithm. I don't know if that qualifies as censorship.
And is the news here to inform or to fill us with propaganda?
The news is largely propaganda. None of
Right.
that has anything to do with the shape of the Earth. So I don't know what the hell you're even talking about. Literally, none of that has to do with the shape of the Earth. So you're
Shame
really
on
Sean,
off to a
don't-
bad start already.
just looking for some common ground. That's all.
Oh,
So
if we
Sean-
both don't like the government, therefore the Earth is flat.
I
So,
just
so
wanted
the
to
so
see
the
your
common
stance.
so the common ground is then we're going to try and keep talking points to 3 minutes each, responses to 2 or 3 minutes each, so we could get through this hour, and everyone could get an equal share of the time involved here. And I think the first point that we've got up on the list is, what is gravity?
You want to go first, Dave, or you want me to go?
Oh, okay. This is how we're doing this. Okay, so according to general relativity, it's the curvature of space-time around massive objects. And so this is one of the easiest ways to know that the Earth is a sphere, because everything we see, everything, including the Earth, right, very large, massive objects are crushed into sphere. That's why stars, planets, moons, everything pretty much is spheres. So you can now go ahead and do your like electric gravity bullshit, and